There was a chilly winter morning in a small town, and a homeless man sat curled up against a wall, shivering in the cold. People walked by, glancing at him for a moment, and then rushing on with their lives. But a young woman noticed him, stopped, and approached with a warm smile. She didn't just hand him a cup of coffee, she took off her own coat, wrapped it around his shoulders, and sat down with him. They spoke for a while, and for the first time in days, he felt like a human being instead of someone invisible. That simple gesture wasn't just warmth for his body, it was warmth for his soul. A single father struggling to make ends meet was working double shifts at a grocery store. One night, after his long shift, he walked out to the parking lot to find a stranger quietly loading groceries into his old car. Shocked, he approached the man, who simply smiled and handed him an envelope. Inside was enough cash to pay off some of his bills. The stranger hugged him and said, "You don't owe me anything, just do something kind for someone else when you can." That father later said he cried all night, not because of the money, but because someone cared enough to help him when he felt utterly alone. Sometimes kindness shows up when we least expect it. A woman was having the worst day of her life, grieving the loss of her child. She walked into a flower shop just to smell the roses, hoping it would bring her some comfort. The florist noticed her tears and gently asked what was wrong. When the woman told her story, the florist quietly gathered a beautiful bouquet of white lilies, roses, and baby's breath, handed it to her, and said, "This is for your angel." The woman later wrote that this single act from a stranger helped her believe in love and humanity again. One of the most touching acts of kindness happened in a crowded restaurant. A young waiter noticed an elderly man sitting alone, struggling to cut his food because his hands were trembling. Without hesitation, the waiter knelt beside him, gently cut the man's steak, and even helped him eat, patiently and respectfully. Other diners watched in silence, and some even teared up. Later, someone paid for the man's meal and left a note that said, "You reminded us all what kindness looks like. Thank you." Kindness has no age, and one little boy proved it. He saw a stray dog shivering in the rain, clearly starving and sick. The boy ran home, grabbed an old towel, and wrapped it around the dog. He brought out his own meal, placing it in front of the animal. His mother watched quietly from the window, tears rolling down her face. That night, the boy begged to let the dog stay, and they ended up rescuing it. That small act of compassion didn't just save a dog's life, it turned a broken creature into a beloved family member. Acts of kindness also happen in places where hope feels lost. A teacher in a struggling neighborhood noticed one of her students coming to school every day without lunch. Instead of embarrassing him, she started packing an extra sandwich and slipping it into his bag with a smile. She wrote little notes saying, "You're smart, and I believe in you." Years later, that same boy grew up and became a successful man. At a charity event, he recognized her, hugged her, and said, "You saved my life, not just with food, but with love." There's a powerful story of a teenager who used his own allowance to secretly pay for groceries for a struggling family in his community. The mother had been counting every coin at the checkout line, clearly embarrassed. When she realized the bill was already paid, she burst into tears. She tried to thank him, but the boy just smiled and walked away. That simple moment stayed with her for years and inspired her to start a local food drive. Kindness also shines during life's darkest moments. A man who had lost everything, his job, his home, and his will to live, was walking across a bridge one night, contemplating ending his life. Out of nowhere, a stranger stopped him, handed him a cup of coffee, and started talking about life, laughter, and hope. That conversation lasted hours, and by sunrise, the man decided to keep going. He later said, "That stranger didn't just save me, he gave me a reason to believe that someone cares." Even small gestures can leave a lifelong impact. A woman once found herself stranded on a deserted road with a flat tire, late at night. She was terrified. Suddenly, a man stopped his truck and changed her tire for her. When she tried to pay him, he simply said, "Just pass on the kindness." Years later, she helped a young mother at a gas station who couldn't pay for her fuel, and she realized she was continuing the same cycle of kindness that had saved her that night. There are countless moments like these happening around the world every day. A teenager who gives up his seat for an elderly woman, a bus driver who buys breakfast for a hungry passenger, a stranger who holds the door and offers a smile. They may seem small, But to someone who is hurting, these actions can mean everything. What makes kindness so powerful is that it spreads like wildfire. One act inspires another, and before you know it, hearts are touched, lives are changed, and the world becomes a little brighter. The truth is, you never know what someone is going through. That person next to you at the store, that neighbor who barely speaks, the delivery driver bringing your food, they could all be fighting silent battles. A kind word, a smile, or a helping hand might just be the reason they keep going. So as you watch these stories, I hope you're reminded that we all have the power to be someone's miracle. You don't need a lot of money, fame, or influence to change a life. Sometimes all it takes is showing up, caring, and giving from the heart.